Okay, I know before we start that each video in this series has been about weird and wonderful models of each generation of the Volkswagen Golf, whether that's models made way longer than they should have been or extreme one-offs. They've all been something special. This one is not about something special. In fact, this one is about something incredibly mundane. This one is about a bog standard Econobox runabout, and it's a diesel. This one is about the standard Mark 6 Golf, one of the most important cars in the history of Volkswagen. The car that just might have changed the face of Volkswagen forever. Yep, we were gonna have to cover it at some stage, so strap on or strap in. This one's gonna be grim. As part of the 50 years of golf, it's time to cover the elephant in the room. It's time to talk about the Mark 6 Golf and dieselgate. Introduced to the world in 2008, the Mark 6 Golf really was a stopgap model. Designed to try and justify the costs of tooling for the Mark V, the Mark 6 was essentially a heavily facelifted Mark V, as Volkswagen were planning on developing a whole new platform which would become the Mark 7. So for now, the Mark 6 would just have to do, but if you ask me, they could have done so much worse. A little more streamlined, a lot more modern, the Mark 6 was a handsome looking machine. It was also the return, for us at least, of a legendary namesake, the GTD. We covered it more in our GTD video, so feel free to check that out. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind newer viewers that we are an Irish channel here, so bear in mind we're talking in Irish terms, so your trim levels and specifications may vary. But picture a GTI Golf, put a diesel in it, you're basically there. Reviewers loved it too, I mean, well, what's not to love? More of the same great Golf, with particular attention being paid to interior quality. Mark 4 levels of quality with Mark 5 levels of refinement. The Mark 7 is considered to be the high point of Volkswagen interior quality, but it wouldn't have got there without standing on the shoulders of the Mark 6. Yep, it would seem like it had everything going for it. The Mark 6 was going to be the perfect stopgap between the Mark 5 and the Mark 7. So, where did it all go wrong? Well, it all started with Volkswagen's clean diesels. Now, to preface this, I don't really care about emissions and environment and shit like that. To be honest, Connor usually covers all that sort of stuff, so we're not going to get too into the nitty gritty before the commenters jump in and decide to tear us to shreds. Cast your mind back to 2015. Windows 10 is launched, Top Gear as we knew it was dead, and Volkswagen admits to one of the biggest scandals in automotive history. Great year then. At least we still had Harambe. God rest his soul. In America, there's this thing called the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. As you can imagine, they do their best to protect, well, the environment. In 2013, a study was undertaken to measure the amount of pollution caused by diesel passenger cars in the US. The irony of all of this is that the test was conducted to prove just how good the diesels were. Oops. It's measured in NOx, or NOx. There's lots of chemistry gobbledygook about this, but the take home from it is that it's responsible for things like smog, acid rain and general pollution. Shit that's bad for you, basically. And what they set out to see was if there was a cohesive difference between stated figures and real world figures. I mean, you know how it is, how something performs in the real world versus how it performs in a laboratory, two totally different things. I should also clarify, it's not always for the worse. I mean, the fuel economy figures for a Mark II Golf GTI say are about 38 to 40, and mine regularly sees 43 to 44, so you never know. So they set up a portable testing rig that allowed them to measure actual real-world testing with a sample of 3 cars, 2 VWs and a BMW. Apparently they wanted a Mercedes but couldn't obtain one. How strange. The BMW met its stated figures quite happily with the exception of rural uphills, so basically when it was under load. The Volkswagens, however, didn't fare so well. The Volkswagens were as high as 30% over the limits. But these exact same cars were passing the laboratory tests with flying carpets, so what gives? Well, actually, it's very clever. It's very bad, but it's very clever. Most emissions tests, as we said, are done in labs in perfect conditions. Conditions that are very irregular to the real world. So some manufacturers designed a piece of software that could detect those irregular conditions. And when they were detected, the car would cut down on power and other vitals to greatly reduce the emissions. Once it realizes it's not being tested anymore, it'll revert out of this state and restore all the power in its vitals. Some call it cheating, I call it bending the rules. When doing the real world tests, the results were so far and above what the laboratory tests were saying that they repeated the experiment over and over and over again, which you would do anyway for accuracy, but they went above and beyond here because they actually thought the equipment was faulty. So the people undertaking the study gave the results to the EPA, who then took it up with Volkswagen. Volkswagen then admitted in September of 2015 that they had installed emissions testing cheat software and that they would have to recall every single car fitted with it. All 11 million of them. As you can imagine, this was not cheap, with Volkswagen agreeing to pay over $14.7 billion in civil charges and a $2.8 billion fine on top. Volkswagen held their hands up and even the CEO said, yeah, we screwed up. And I quote. So what about the Mark 6? Well, Volkswagen gave basically three options. Get a recall done which promised to maintain economy but at the cost of performance, or they introduce a buyback scheme where they would buy the car back off you. Or you do what Arshay did with his Jetta and say, fuck it, I don't really care about emissions. So if you ever wonder why you don't really see Mark 6s in comparison to Mark 5s and Mark 7s, it's because most of them were bought back by Volkswagen. Volkswagen since decided they needed to improve their image, concentrating extra hard on electric push around the world to try and help people forget about the dieselgate fiasco. As a result of this, what should have just been a run-of-the-mill hatchback that was to tie you over before the Mark 7 came along, changed the face of the entire automotive industry. Because let's be real, it's not just Volkswagen that was at it, they all were. Volkswagen was just the ones who took the fall. Many other manufacturers have later admitted to or were caught doing the same. But the media circus had already got their story by then. And we still feel the effects of all of this today. I mean, it's entirely possible that this whole electric revolution and the scramble to find alternative fuels all stems from this. Chances are dieselgate was just a catalyst to get everybody scrambling to find new fuels. Like many things with history, I guess we'll just never know. And Volkswagen to this day are still paying back what they owe on the fines. I guess it's kind of like reparations. Hints of World War I coming back. The Mark 6 Golf may seem sort of forgotten about these days as an in-between of the radical Mark 5 and the fantastic Mark 7, but in reality it's one of the most important Golfs of them all. Just not for the right reasons. So, thanks very much for watching this little deep dive into kind of a dark side of the whole 50 years of golf thing, but it's something we have to cover. I mean, Dieselgate happened, it's changed the world, believe it or not. So like it or not, it's something we had to cover. I've been Tomo, thank you very much. This is 427 Motorsports. Head to our link below to buy some t-shirts with Mercs or Volkswagens on. Every bit really helps out, we really appreciate it. Tune in next time for the Mark 7 video and for the big grand finale 50 years of golf where we have a super special episode. So yeah, thanks very much for watching and good luck.